Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tree Week. My name is Chad Nyman. I'm a forest product specialist working in extension, applied research, and teaching at the University of Kentucky Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. These recordings for Tree Week are going to be uploaded. Renee is going to put Billy's in the chat box, I believe, and you should receive an email if you registered for this webinar series. And so you'll have access to all of these recordings from this week's webinars. I'd like to tell you all about Dr. Ellen Crocker's forest tree disease presentation tomorrow at noon. And so that's a very important forest health topic, and hope that you all will be able to join for that tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk about a new program with a high school curriculum that we've developed in Kentucky, and it is called the Kentucky ForestryWorks program. And so this is an effort that has been led between the University of Kentucky Forestry Extension, the Kentucky Division of Forestry, the Kentucky Forest Industries Association, as well as ForestryWorks. And this is to address the big skills gap that exists out there with folks in the wood industry careers, all the way from the forest into finished products. And so we know that these careers, if we don't have people trained to go into these positions, there's 2.4 million of these positions that will be unfilled between 2018 and 2028 if we don't find folks that are interested in these types of careers. And that has a huge economic impact of $2.5 trillion. And so that's an important thing that we want to address in forestry. And so the forest industry in Kentucky is covered with hardwood forests, and these hardwood forests, they regenerate on their own, and they provide us with so many wonderful forest products. And so if we look out across the landscape and we see this great state of Kentucky that's nearly half covered in trees, we have a lot of loggers. So we have over 2,270 Kentucky master loggers throughout the state, and we have around 674 wood industries. So each of these dots on the map is one of these wood industries in the state, and they may use things like residues to make things like charcoal or fire logs, or other products like hardwood flooring, molding and millwork, doors and windows, or things like railway ties and musical instruments. There's so many different industries in the state of Kentucky, and with that makes a lot of different opportunities for careers. And all of those folks working in the forest industry in Kentucky provides us $18.6 billion annually from the contribution of the forest sector, and 57,275 Kentuckians being employed overall. And we know this from this economic contribution report that our forestry extension team puts together each year. And if you'd like to read the full report, we have a link here available, but you can find it online by searching UKY Forest Sector Economic Contribution Report. And so just to draw down a little bit further into the importance of these forestry careers and show the big picture, we start out in the woods with a woodland owner or a farmer who owns that woodland and manages it over time. And if they have a harvest of that timber, that generates money for that family or woodland owner that lives there and owns that property. And then the logger who harvests that timber generates value from that wood. And then as it's processed at the sawmill and turned into lumber and railway ties, that adds a lot more value. And then from there, that lumber goes into making what we call secondary products, which are finished goods, cabinets and flooring and millwork. But then those byproducts are the slabs of the logs are turned into pulp and paper. And then other residues like sawdust and bark are turned into different products like mulch and charcoal. We also have this barrel production in the state of Kentucky tied to our bourbon industry. which is a really large economic driver. And that bourbon industry by itself contributes about $9 billion annually as well. So our forests are very important. There's a lot of different careers, and we want to address the gap in skills and trained people to go into these careers. So that's where the initiative to develop ForestryWorks Kentucky came from. So we wanted to be able to enable and empower our high school teachers to teach about these wood industry and forestry careers. And so through the Kentucky Department of Education and the Kentucky Career and Technical Education, we were able to get the ForestryWorks program developed and approved for use for the high school teachers to be able to teach about these careers to address that gap. And so with the forest worker credential, it provides some basic information about forestry, a little bit of information about different forest certification systems, information about forest product manufacturing, and then careers in the forest industry to better inform young people about the opportunities that exist in the forest sector. And so we train the teachers through different training opportunities throughout the year. And then these teachers, once they have passed the exam and completed the training, are able to then train their students. And then the students are able to test, and they can receive a certificate at the end to be a credentialed forest worker. And so there's 4 easy steps in the whole process. The workbook is where a majority of the time is spent with the students and the instructors in going through the content. And then there are supplemental activities that reinforce those skills and knowledge that they've gained. And then to prepare for final examination, there are quizzes of the content that they have learned, and then at the end they take that exam, and it's a comprehensive 90-question exam that they have 2 hours to complete. And so we've developed this to prepare workers and students for employment in one of our largest industries in the US. And with these skills, employment opportunities exist within timber procurement, forest management, logging, sawmills, pulp and paper industry. And so with this certification for high school students, they have a certificate in hand that is recognized by industry. And so that can help them to find the pathway that they want to pursue for a career. And so looking at, for a moment, into the modules that we have for the Kentucky Forest Worker Certificate, the different topics that we're covering involve things about information about Kentucky's forests. And then we provide them information about manufacturing of forest products, the cruising of timber and determining volume, harvesting of timber, growing of trees, managing of forest stands and conserving working forests, non-timber forest resources, which includes wildlife, and then legal issues in forestry pertaining to property boundaries and timber theft. And then Module 10 focuses on those careers in forestry, which is the working in forestry module. And so as teachers and students go through the workbook, they will see a lot of different information about tree measurements and tools that are used in the forest, as well as forest information about types of forests and species that exist, how to identify different trees, and so much different information about our great forests, the 12.4 million acres of forest land that we have in Kentucky. So to develop this certificate and Kentucky Forestry Works, as I mentioned, the Kentucky Forest Industries Association, the Kentucky Division of Forestry, and the University of Kentucky have pulled this together. And we've used other outlets like the Ohio Valley Lumber Drying Association that works to teach wood drying education throughout the Ohio Valley region. But we need everyone that we can get to help us to reach all 120 counties of Kentucky, to let them know that this opportunity exists for teachers and students to learn more about forests and to be able to get the forestry worker certificate. And so really quickly, I wanted to mention our education committee members. Lori Thomas, who works with UK Forestry Extension, and if you've seen From the Woods Today before, you will know her Tree of the Week and many other great segments. We also have Bob Bauer with the Kentucky Forest Industries Association. He's the executive director there. We have Stephen Rogers, who works with the Kentucky Division of Forestry and works in the Forest Resource Utilization Program. And then Michael Ammerman, who's the assistant director of the Kentucky Master Logger Program, Stacy White with Whitley County Extension Office. But we also have received a lot of support from Stephanie Fuller, Maggie Pote, Jordan Littrell, and Tennessee Forestry Works in developing our program. And so there, in addition to the high school resources we have, there are some youth resources for K through 5th grade that Forestry Works has available, including these books written by Stephanie Fuller to help young people learn a bit more about the forest sector and in woods logging activities and utilization of our forest resources. And so I want you all to know that those resources exist. But looking at that high school curriculum and that certificate program, this promotes these logging, wood industry, and forestry careers. And there's many different careers that exist within the forest sector. But before we jump into talking about those forestry careers, we do want to talk about our upcoming Kentucky Forestry Works field course, which is going to be held at Robinson Forest for the next 3 years at a minimum. And so this field course is completely scholarship based. We have a grant that covers all the expenses for high school students that are interested in learning more about forestry careers. And so this is a value that's over $500, including residential lodging for the 2 weeks, meals, and all of the other expenses for activities covered. And so this is a very applied and hands-on learning opportunity for young people to be able to go in the woods and see the in-woods management side, and then through the forest product utilization side, and they'll even have opportunities to go into wood industries in this region to be able to learn more about the value added through people working in the forest industry and manufacturing that wood into finished products. And so they'll get to experience the 15,000 acre research, teaching, and extension forest, as well as be able to see some of the real world activities, and as well as active logging jobs, be able to see more of that perspective. And so if you're interested or know of a young person who's interested in this field course at the Robinson Forest in Breathitt County, Kentucky, then here is an application for them to be able to apply. And so we'll encourage you to do that soon, as this program is limited to only 20 high school students a year. And so it is application based, and we do require a letter of support, a letter of reference from someone that you have that will provide that on your behalf as part of that application process. And so some of the things that students may see as they're at the field course could be tree identification, learning more about our different forest tree resources, and it could involve better understanding of how we scale and determine volume for our trees and logs, as well as utilization and sawing of those materials. We will have some time for the students to spend at the University of Kentucky's Robinson Wood Utilization Center, which is located down the road about 40 minutes from the Robinson Forest. And this is a really unique facility, as it was built in 1962 as our forest that we had clear cut in the early 1900s had grown back. And we realized that the value of those resources was leaving the area and being manufactured somewhere else. And so the students will have a unique opportunity to work with wood that has been upcycled and reclaimed from Robinson Forest, and they'll be able to see some of the processing and manufacturing could involve a making of a bat house is one of the activities that we have planned. And so they'll actually get to take their own bat house home with them with some instructions on where and how to install that to provide habitat for critically endangered bats using wood products. So I mentioned those different tours of industries that students will have an opportunity to get to see as a partnership and part of this ForestryWorks program. So inside of woodworking facilities, there is amazing technology nowadays with robotics, automation, scanning, every bit of technology that you can imagine. But out in the woods, there is a lot of technology that has been advancing for some time as well. And that includes the ability to use aerial photography, GPS, as well as drones, what we call unmanned aircraft systems. And those can be used to better understand the forest resources we have, detect pests that might be killing or injuring trees, and many other uses. It's used very commonly in fire nowadays. But then if we look at logging equipment, it has become much safer, much less impactful on the forest landscape. And so it really is a very technology-driven system out there. And so young people may not realize the opportunities that exist to be able to use technology to manage our forest resources and how they can go about that. And so now we'll be able to talk about some of these different forestry careers working out in the woods or in a wood industry. And so the great thing is, I told you all earlier that there are a lot of different opportunities, but they also span a very wide area of education. And so folks that may only want to have a high school diploma or a GED, all the way to a PhD and everything in between, there really are careers at whatever education level that you have or wish to attain. And so one of those jobs that someone might pursue out in the forest would be a forester. And so these folks, they assist private and public landowners in managing the forest resources on their land. They will help them with forest inventory and implementing different silvicultural prescriptions out there on the landscape. To be a forester, it does require a bachelor's degree in forestry, but there are several different types of foresters. And so I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper into the different types of foresters that are out there and how someone can use their forestry degree in many different ways. One of those would be a consultant forester, which is a private business that provides these forestry services and assists landowners with that land management as well as valuation of their forest resources. And then procurement foresters often work for industries. And so they maintain oversight of harvesting operations and ensure that the procurement of timber for their forest product operation is ongoing and done responsibly. And then there are government foresters. And so these might be a state or federal forester managing resources on behalf of the government and the people of the United States or other locations. And so there's a lot of different state parks, national forests, military bases that you may not think of, where water, wildlife, recreation, and tourism are part of the things that they have going on, in addition to managing those forest resources and keeping them healthy and productive. And then oftentimes people don't think about urban forestry. Our cities and businesses and communities, they have all of these trees, and what those trees collectively are is an urban tree canopy and an urban forest. And so it takes professionals who are willing and interested in working in that urban environment to ensure that our trees are healthy. Forest health is a very important component of keeping these trees on the landscape and having our cities be healthier. And so you need folks that are able to help manage that for the safety and health of everyone in those areas. And so a different type of forester working in the urban environment. And then we get into forest technicians. These are often a 2-year associate degree program, and these folks will assist foresters and landowners and agencies with forest management, implementation of practices, as well as data collection in those forests. And so these are really important and needed jobs in Kentucky, as we have so many forest resources and not enough forest technicians or a program to be able to train forest technicians. Then we have logging equipment operators. And so there's a few different types of logging equipment that exist out there. You may have heard of a skidder or a feller buncher. And so those are just a couple of different types of equipment. They'll have cut to length systems where they're able to cut the trees down and trim them into logs of certain lengths. And so these folks are out there operating that equipment, harvesting and extracting wood from our woodlands. They're often doing this for private woodland owners and farmers. And so you have all of that equipment, and someone has to be able to maintain it. And so between out in the woods with logging and a lot of our wood industries, there are a lot of heavy equipment that are used. And so a lot of opportunities to maintain that equipment. And then we have wildlife biologists. There's many different types of wildlife biologists out there. And so there you could work for Fish and Wildlife in a state or federal role. And so these often require some type of graduate school, a bachelor's at a minimum, but they're quite competitive jobs. And so additional master's or graduate school are often needed to be able to get into one of these really important and exciting jobs where you're assisting landowners and agencies in managing habitat for that multiple use where you're benefiting these wildlife objectives. And so we have log truck drivers. And so once all of those logs have been harvested, someone has to be able to transport those to our sawmills and wood industries. And these positions do require commercial driver's license to be able to safely take that truck down the road and get the logs to where they need to be. And forest rangers, we have some of those out in Kentucky. And so these folks are protecting our forest resources. So they have to enforce different regulations that exists out there. The Kentucky Forest Conservation Act would be one of those that they would be enforcing here in Kentucky. But they also implement fire protection, prevention, and control. And so when wildfires occur out on the landscape, these are often some of the first folks that are responding and protecting our forest resources and communities. And a very different type of career that many folks may not think about, but there are different career opportunities in forest policy and advocacy where folks are providing information and support for forest industries. And so there are quite a few different jobs that would fall into this type of category. And as we move closer into the sawmills and wood industries, we have folks that are grading and assessing the quality and how much of it is there, what we call scaling the volume of logs when they arrive at forest products industries. These are really important jobs because they have to be fair and make sure that they're paying for the right amount of volume to the loggers who are bringing those logs in, but they also have to make sure that they're protecting the interest of that facility that they're working for and that they're properly assessing the grade and the amount of volume that is there. And there is a good bit of new technology that is coming into these jobs to assist, but very important job. And as we get into the manufacturing of forest products, there are a lot of jobs that involve furniture and cabinet making, even carpentry to some degree. And so this could involve folks working for a business or as an entrepreneur making finished wood products. And so having end users of that wood to make finished goods that can be sold to the public for their different needs. Then we also have a real strong need for chemical engineering in some of our very advanced wood and paper facilities. And so you think of things like process control, product development, chemical engineers. We have a few of these types of positions that work in places like pulp and paper mills that we have in the state. And so this is going to become more and more important, having folks that work in these realms being able to transform raw cellulose and wood material into useful products. And a lot of these products have not even been fully developed yet. We're just now to the point where nanocellulose is fully understood and products have been pilot tested to see what their utilization can be. And so there's a lot of advancement that's going to occur in chemical engineering in forest products as we move into the future. And a lot of it is really exciting what we can see currently. And along the lines with a different type of engineering, civil engineers, you may not typically think of this one as being tied to the forest sector, but they lead construction of new buildings, and they're often using a lot of wood products as well as other materials to make safe structures. And so as we look at advancements in the built environment, like mass timber, cross-laminated timber, a need for design engineers and licensed engineers that understand structural wood products and how those can help us to reduce our impact on the planet and build healthier and more sustainable buildings that help us to manage our forest resources. And digging into forest product manufacturing careers, we have a few that we're going to highlight here. We're not able to talk about every career, but I wanted to give just some of the breadth of these different careers. And so we have equipment operators. There's quite a few different forklifts and loaders, different types of equipment that handle that raw material. And so things like knuckle boom loaders and cranes are even used in some instances. And so experience in these types of roles and having people that can safely operate that equipment is always really valued. And then dry kiln operators, the people who actually dry the wood and remove the moisture content, they're able to control the quality of that wood as it's coming through that drying operation. And it's so important that that wood be dried properly so that it's not damaged and so that there's a very high quality product that comes out the other end. And so these jobs are usually very well compensated. There is some knowledge of wood science that needs to be understood, as well as moisture loss from wood and things like equilibrium moisture content. And so it's a career field where experience is very highly valued. And while there is no specific education requirement, a wood science or wood tech degree would be very valuable and help someone in drying of lumber. And that's a really important one because we take so much lumber and put it through these kilns, and if they dry it too fast, they can actually destroy that lumber. And then within these different facilities, there are folks working in different mill positions. And so there's a lot of these different jobs like lumber grading and inspection, folks that are operating edgers and trimming the sides of the boards to make a nice square board. The folks that are sawing the logs into lumber. And so experience is developed throughout those different positions with a lot of on-the-job training. But there are also training programs through the National Hardwood Lumber Association and different extension programs throughout the country that help to assist with training in those areas. In our Wood Utilization Center with the University of Kentucky, we were able to provide several of these types of trainings to support different mill worker positions. And then machine operators, there's a lot of different automation and technology that is integrated into these positions. And so you have human computer interfaces with touch screens and scanning technology where every board that passes through the facility is scanned and assessed. And they can automate trimming of boards and so many things that you have to have someone who understands the manual production side, but also understands and is comfortable working with that equipment. And so there is the opportunity to learn a lot of this on the job, but 2-year training programs can provide a lot of information to support someone in operating of machines in wood product manufacturing facilities. And to keep all of that wood sawn properly and to keep it safe and responsible, there has to be important maintenance that occurs with those saws. And so someone has to actually file every one of those band saws, keep them sharp. You have to make sure that they're transferred out and that other preventative maintenance is taken care of. And building upon that, maintenance techs, facilities of any even smaller operations will often have maintenance folks on their staff that work full time to be able to maintain and repair equipment. It's extremely expensive to bring someone in from the outside, and that causes a lot of downtime. And so having someone that understands how to maintain and repair that equipment is very important in forest product manufacturing. But there are many other important jobs that you might not think about applying to forestry. And so these facilities, they have needs for folks that are electricians, have electrical backgrounds, as well as folks in information technology, managing some of those computer and technology systems that are running in those facilities and keeping them functioning properly. And some of our larger facilities even keep professional engineers on staff focused in either electrical, chemical, mechanical, or pulp and paper engineering. And then welding. There's a lot of fabrication and different things that need to be welded inside of a facility like this to keep all of the processes flowing and adapt in real time. And then building into the management of these facilities, there are opportunities for forest products processing managers. And so those folks oversee the processing and leading teams to produce these renewable products that we all need. And another one that folks may not often think of is marketing. And so having folks that assist with that product storytelling and marketing, provide education and information about the products that they sell. And this is becoming more and more important in our society as everyone is so busy. And so having people that can be able to share information and support that sales team with good marketing information that catches new customers and draws in and supports that market. And sales. So there are a lot of folks that work in different facilities that purchase or sell forest products as a sales representative. And so they're constantly reaching out and keeping that pipeline of purchasing and selling occurring for those individual industries. And so we want to encourage everyone to be a conduit of information to help us to share forestry works, whether that may be through a career day or just by sharing the information about the program with high school teachers or administrators and helping to spread the word of this high school curriculum and the field course that we have available. So please help us to spread the word to high school teachers and administrators and any high school students that may be interested in logging, wood industry, and forestry careers and may want to attend the field course that we're hosting this next year in June. So that is what I have for today. Do we have any questions at this time?